Hey everyone, welcome back. Sometimes you hear something and it just sticks with you.
Totally.
And Elder Bednar's last talk, In the Path of Their Duty, well, that was it for me.
Yeah.
He gave it at the last General Conference, which, for those who don't know, is this big biannual event for Latter-day Saints.
Right.
It's kind of like a global pep talk for the soul, if you will.
I like that.
But here's the thing. This message, it wasn't just for one faith, at least not to me.
Interesting. How so?
It got me thinking about, the unsung heroes all around us.
Oh, I see.
The people out there quietly making things happen every day, without needing a parade or, anything like that.
Those are the best kind.
Exactly. And that's what Elder Bednar really gets at, I think.
And how does he frame it?
He uses this really powerful image right at the beginning. He talks about the pioneers, right?
Once you cross the plains.
Yeah, exactly. Trekking west for hundreds of miles, facing incredible hardship.
Wow.
And he focuses on, get this, the people at the very back of the wagon train.
Really?
Can you imagine all that dust, the constant struggle?
And the feeling of being invisible, probably.
Yeah. Does anyone even know I'm here?
It's so easy to focus on whoever's at the front leading the charge.
It really is. We love to celebrate those folks, don't we?
For sure.
But what about those who are just as vital, even if they're not, grabbing the spotlight?
And I think that's Elder Bednar's point, right? It's like every single thing we do, whether it's something huge like a migration or even just like your team at work, there are always last wagon people.
I love that.
They're the ones quietly keeping everything running behind the scenes.
The glue that holds it all together.
Precisely. They might not be the loudest voices in the room, but their consistency, their dedication, that's the backbone of anything worthwhile.
It makes you think, though, why do we put so much emphasis on being front and center?
It's the world we live in.
I mean, don't get me wrong, leaders are important, but shouldn't we be just as quick to recognize, the quiet dedication of those who rarely get, a standing ovation,
Absolutely. It's like we forget that sometimes the greatest impact comes from the steadiest presence.
And to really drive this home, Elder Bednar uses this example from the Book of Mormon, which, just so everyone's on the same page, is a book of scripture important to Latter-day Saints.
Of course.
And this comparison he makes, it always gets me.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What is it?
He talks about Moroni, this legendary military leader, right? Okay.
It is Moroni.
And then he brings up Helaman.
Less flashy.
Right, and that's the point, isn't it?
It is.
We live in a world totally obsessed with being superstars.
All the time.
But Helaman, he reminds us that quiet, consistent service, that's a superpower too.
It's funny you should mention superpowers because it's like he's saying, look around you. These Helamans, these unsung heroes, they're everywhere.
They really are, and he gives some really great examples too. It's like he's holding up a mirror to our everyday lives.
What kind of examples?
Okay, so get this. He talks about the simple act of, sitting next to someone who's alone at church. And, yeah, I know, we're thinking about his original audience here.
Of course.
But still, think about it. Such a small gesture,
Right.
but it can make someone feel so seen, so welcomed, especially if they're new or, feeling a little out of place.
Absolutely. Sometimes the smallest actions can have the biggest impact.
Exactly. And it's not always about, these grand gestures, like he talked about spouses, family members who support someone with a really demanding job.
Oh, I see.
Those folks, they're the wind beneath the wings, right?
The unsung heroes keeping everything afloat at home.
Exactly. They're not giving the big presentations or closing the deals.
But they're making it possible.
Exactly. They're providing that essential foundation of love and stability.
I love how he brings it down to those everyday relatable experiences.
And then he talks about, people returning to their faith after being away for a while, or those who are, waiting for blessings, for prayers to be answered. We don't always see their struggles.
Their quiet determination.
But they're there, and their very presence, it's this example of resilience, of hope.
And that in itself can be so inspiring for others who might be going through similar things.
Right, and he even gives a shout out to, get this, translators and interpreters.
Oh, wow. Yeah, they're the unsung heroes of communication, aren't they?
For real. They're working behind the scenes, but they're making it possible for people to connect across cultures and languages, to share ideas.
Understand each other better.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
a huge contribution, even if most people don't even realize they're there.
And it speaks to how much of our world functions because of people who are content to work behind the scenes.
Totally. And speaking of unsung heroes, can we talk about those who teach young children for a second?
Oh my goodness, yes.
Sunday school teachers, nursery leaders, talk about a labor of love.
Shaping young minds, instilling values, and often doing it with a smile, even when they're covered in, like, glitter and juice boxes.
Right. It's easy to underestimate the impact they have, but those individuals, they're laying the foundation for the future.
Absolutely. And on a similar note, let's not forget those who are caring for aging parents. Talk about true dedication and selflessness.
That's real love right there. Often putting their own lives on hold to care for those who once cared for them.
It's a beautiful, but often overlooked example of in the path of their duty.
It really is. It's like Elder Bednar wants us to take off our blinders and really see the countless acts of service happening all around us constantly.
Because those moments, they matter.
They really do. They might be small, they might go unnoticed, but they're the threads that hold everything together.
Yeah.
It makes you think, like, are we even looking for the right things, you know?
Interesting.
Like, we're so caught up in, whatever's trending, whoever's shouting the loudest.
It's true.
Well, what if we shifted our focus, you know?
What if
Instead of always craving that spotlight ourselves, we started really appreciating those who are content to just, shine their light quietly?
to just be in the service of others?
Exactly. And that's what Elder Bednar calls being no less serviceable. And he says these folks, these are the ones who make any group strong.
They really are. It's not about the recognition for them, right?
Right. It's about reliability, showing up consistently, even when, like, nobody's watching.
And that's a powerful testament to their character.
Totally. It's like, what was the analogy he used? Oh, yeah.
What was it?
It's like the foundation of a house.
Oh, I like that.
You don't see it, but it's holding the whole thing up.
Exactly. It's essential.
It really is. And it makes me wonder, how can we get better at seeing those last wagon folks in our own lives,
It's a great question.
Because it's so easy to just, like, take those small acts of service for granted.
It is. So how do we do that?
Well, I think part of it is just being more aware.
More mindful.
Yeah. Like, who are the people in your life whose contributions often go unnoticed?
Right. Who are those people?
Maybe it's that coworker who's always willing to lend a hand, or the neighbor who, like, keeps an eye on your kids.
Or that quiet family member who's always there to offer support without making a big deal about it.
Yes, exactly. It's about being tuned in to those quieter forms of service because they're happening all the time.
They really are, if we just open our eyes to see them.
And it gets you thinking, what if we all tried to be a little more, no less serviceable?
Imagine that world.
Right. What kind of world would that be?
Where everyone's just focused on contributing, on doing what's needed.
Instead of always needing the credit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Focusing less on the spotlight and more on lifting others up.
On being that steady presence, that reliable force for good.
In our homes, our communities, everywhere.
It's really powerful to think about, isn't it? And I think, for me at least, it's a real call to action. It's a call to find those last wagon moments in my own life and embrace them,
Not for the recognition, but because it's the right thing to do.
Absolutely. It's about showing up, being present, and contributing, even when it feels like nobody's watching.
Because sometimes those quiet acts of service, they make all the difference.
I really do. Well, that was pretty profound, don't you think?
Lots to think about, for sure.
Definitely gives us all something to, chew on this week.
I think that's a good place to leave it.
Until next time, then.
Looking forward to it.